Discover 3 spine-chilling janitor horror stories, terrifying secrets exposed from haunted spaces. Tessa never thought she'd be cleaning the same hallways where laughter once echoed. The dim lights flickered above her as she pushed the mop, a faint chill creeping through her bones. Every swipe of her mop seemed to summon whispers from the shadows, like disembodied voices full of stories long buried. The elementary school stood still, its walls heavy with secrets of children long forgotten. But desperate times called for desperate measures, and doing this graveyard shift was a necessity to keep the lights on for her teenage son, Kyle. Her heart raced with each creak of the ancient floorboards, those nostalgic memories morphing into something sinister. The school, once filled with vibrant energy, felt more like a tomb now, filled with dread and uncertainty. Shadows danced at the corners of her vision. Would she be able to shake the feeling of being watched? The sensation slithered under her skin, crawling, squeezing, refusing to let go. Each whisper seemed to grow louder as if trying to warn her. As she tidied the forgotten supply closet one night, she found them grotesquely stained rags and rusting tools that should have been long gone. The sight was repulsive. An alarming sense of dread clamped down on her gut. "Just relics," she muttered, forcing a smile. "They are just leftover junk." Bills piled high in her apartment, forcing her to stay positive and rationalize the horror around her. But deep down, she felt it, the air thick with unspoken fears. Her intuition screamed for her to leave, but she kept mopping, moving like a wraith through the ghostly hallways. It was late, the school silent except for the echoes of her own heartbeat. Suddenly, a loose floorboard snapped under her weight. Startled, she stumbled back and froze. A hidden trapdoor gaped at her, a dark maw tempting her to peer into its depths. Curiosity overrode her caution, urging her forward. Beneath the trapdoor, she discovered a forgotten room brimming with dust-covered artifacts, old yearbooks, with smiles that seemed almost alive, only to fade into the gray dust. But one item chilled her more than the rest, a faded photograph depicting cheerful children, their eyes vacant, haunting. Whispers trickled into her mind, warning her of the stories shared by neighbors, the vanishing children lost, their laughter silenced, some said to have been taken by the one who once managed the janitorial staff. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the night deepened, Tessa felt a menacing presence lurk just beyond her periphery. A shadow darted past the door's frame. Panic ignited within her. Where was Kyle? He promised he'd come check on her. Should she go looking? Just as she debated her next move, the phone rang, vibrating violently against her fraying nerves. But when she answered, silence enveloped her. And then, with a rush, the void swallowed Kyle. Frantic, she sprinted through the empty halls, calling for him, fear clawing at her throat, only to discover the more she searched, the more twisted the hallways became. What happened to the children who once filled this place? The shadows stretched around her, thickening as she plummeted deeper into this labyrinth of terror. As she gasped, desperation clawed at her mind. Trust? The neighbors? Could they be connected to this darkness? She could hardly breathe with the horror unspooling. The phantoms of the school were hungry, and she was just beginning to realize the depth of the horror surrounding her. Would she be able to rescue Kyle before she too was lost to the darkness? A chilling realization gripped her. Some secrets were never meant to be uncovered, but she had already taken a step over the threshold and the shadows were closing in fast. Tessa pressed on, her heart thundering against her ribs. Which way had she come from? The old school felt like a maze, twisting and turning beyond recognition. The long-abandoned classrooms seemed to mock her, their doors slightly ajar as if to invite her into their suffocating darkness. Panic stirred. Where did the whispers come from? The slithering whispers grew louder, almost tangible, swirling around her, suffocating her sanity. "Kyle," she shouted, panic lacing her voice. It echoed, bouncing back to her like a taunt. The flickering lights overhead dimmed further, casting a sickly yellow hue that underscored the dread swelling within her. Nothing made sense anymore. Turning madly, she stumbled into a once vibrant art room. Paint-smeared walls still dripped with remnants of the creativity that had flourished there. But now? The room felt oppressive. Tattered canvases hung crookedly, their colors darkened, as if the joy had been drained from them. And there, in the corner, a pile of unfinished projects sat waiting, abandoned mid-creation. She walked closer, drawn to a particular artwork, a crude drawing of a child with hollow eyes. Tessa's gorge rose as she met those empty stares. They swallowed her whole, dragging her deeper into a chilling sense of wrongness. She turned to flee, but the door slammed shut with a force that rattled the very foundation of the room. A shudder traced her spine. She pressed her palms against the door, her breath quickening as she yanked on the handle stuck. Just then, she noticed the window. It was large enough. With adrenaline surging, she raced to it, desperate, and yanked it open. Light washed over her, a spark of hope flooding her sanity. But as she began to climb through, a deep chuckle echoed from behind. "Leaving so soon?" Tessa's heart clenched. From the shadows stepped a figure, half hidden in darkness yet radiating an air of authority. He held a mop, but not like any ordinary one. This one was blackened with dark stains that glimmered with a life of their own. Tessa's breath caught. She recognized him. He had been the janitor whose name echoed through the whispers of the neighbors. "Where is my Kyle?" she demanded, her voice trembling. The man grinned, but his smile was devoid of warmth. "He's fine for now. Children love to play here, children like him. They find what they seek." "What do you mean?" Tessa shook her head, backing away. His laughter bounced off the walls, sharp and cruel. "Oh, you're looking for him? You should know how things work in the dark." With each word, shadows began to swell around him, twisting and writhing like smoke. Tessa instinctively pressed against the window frame, her mind racing, searching for a plan, an escape. "You can't be here," she cried, realizing she was standing on the edge of something sinewy. Fear coursed through her veins. "This can't be real." "Real?" He stepped closer, the shadows curling around his feet. "Aren't we all a little lost? You wanted to uncover secrets, now you're starting to see." Her heart plummeted, tethered to the darkness that encroached upon her. "I just want to find my son. Then join him," he roared, thrusting his hand forward. With that, the shadows lunged at her, thick as fog, wrapping around her limbs. Tessa screamed, struggling, but for every ounce of strength she exerted, the darkness only embraced her tighter. As she gasped for breath, images swirled in her mind, the children from the photograph, laughter intertwined with terror, vibrant yet vacant. It felt like they were pulling her in, whispering for her to come play, and just like that, everything faded to black. What if she had opened a door meant to stay shut? What awaited her on the other side? Did the other mothers know? Tessa's final breath echoed, wrapped within the laughter of the lost children. Tessa woke, gasping, her lungs burning as if she'd been submerged underwater. The darkness pressed around her, thick and suffocating. She forced herself to focus, feeling the coldness of a hard floor beneath her. "Where am I?" Panic shot through her once more, but she fought to hold it at bay. Memories came rushing back, the janitor, the shadows, the laughter. She struggled to her feet, disoriented, her pulse thrumming in her ears. There was no light here, just a heavy blackness that seemed to pulse around her. She took a step, then another, her fingers grazing the cold cement walls. A chill raced through her, the walls felt alive, as if they were breathing. "Kyle!" she cried again, her voice barely a whisper now. The silence that greeted her was deafening, wrapping around her like a noose, the floor creaked beneath her feet, a low groan that echoed through the emptiness. She pressed on, memories of the art room flooding back, each one twisting her stomach. What were those children? What hidden games did they play in this accursed place? A flickering light caught her eye. She turned toward it, hope sparking as she hurried toward the illumination. It led her to a narrow hallway, where a single bulb hung crookedly, its light flickering uncertainly. Shadows danced along the walls, stretching and recoiling as if alive, and she shivered, holding back tears. "Where are you, Kyle?" she murmured, each step forward feeling heavier than the last. The whispers returned, insidious and taunting, a chorus of lost souls echoing around her. Tessa pressed her palms to her ears, but they only grew louder, murky laughter intertwined with her son's name. Then, she heard it, a soft thud, like a child's footsteps. Her heart leapt. "Kyle?" She took off down the hallway, desperate. The sound repeated, drawing her ever deeper. As she turned a corner, the air thickened, and she found herself in what appeared to be a storage room. Boxes piled high, some overflowing with broken toys, old school books, remnants of childlike innocence long gone, but it was the center of the room that drew her in. A small table stood beneath another flickering bulb, where a strange arrangement lay, a series of dolls, each one eerily constructed, their blank faces staring lifelessly in Tessa's direction. A chill swept over her, and she took a step back, heart racing. One doll in particular caught her eye, a dusty figure with dark, hollow eyes resembling the drawing she had seen in the art room. Its mouth, painted in a grin that felt too wide, had a smudge of red beneath it that looked suspiciously like dried blood. Just then, she heard another noise, not from behind but right beside her. A soft giggle, light and playful but laced with something sinister. Tessa, her breath hitched. "Kyle?" "No, silly." The voice was thin, childlike yet wrong, dripping with malice. Kyle's busy playing panic surged through her as she turned, but there was nothing. Just the dolls, their eyes now seeming to follow her every movement, watching her, judging her. "What do you want?" she shouted, the fear bubbling over, forcing back the overwhelming urge to scream. A pause, and then the voice whispered again, echoing from everywhere and nowhere all at once. "To play with your son forever." She stumbled back, eyes darting around. Shadows flickered, and the dolls began to shift, twisting in unnatural ways, their bodies morphing, changing to something grotesque. It was a trap. A snare. She had walked straight into it. Tessa raced toward the door, scrambling, heart pounding, but it slammed shut just as she reached it. "No! Let me out!" she shrieked, pounding on the wood, but the laughter rang in her ears, mocking her. She turned to face the dolls, dread curling in her stomach as a sinister wind swept through the room, blowing out the lights. As darkness swallowed her whole, a sing-song voice echoed in the silence. "Playtime, Tessa, playtime." What if this was only the beginning? What truly lay hidden in the depths of this school, and how deep did its secrets run? The air was frigid, an icy grip wrapping around Tessa as she stumbled blindly in the all-consuming blackness. Everything was silent, save for the thudding of her heart and the creeping echo of the childlike whispers that shimmered off the walls. Forever the word hung in the stale air, thick and sweet like syrup, suffocating her hope. Desperation clawed at her throat. She pressed her back against the wall, desperate to regain her bearings, but it felt like the darkness itself was closing in, pressing in from all sides. "Kyle!" she screamed again, her voice rising and cracking, splintering in the heavy stillness. She needed to break free. Tessa took a deep breath and felt the temperature drop further, goosebumps erupting across her arms. It was as if the shadows were breathing, waiting, lurking just beyond her sight. Mustering her courage, she slowly moved forward, feeling her way along the edge of the wall, glancing nervously at the dolls, a grim audience perched in their unholy arrangement. Gritting her teeth, she focused on the flickering light that had led her here in the first place. If she could just reach it, the thought was a thread of hope in her suffocating fear. One step. Then two. The whispers turned into a cacophony that filled her ears, the same word repeating over and over again. Forever, forever. Suddenly, she felt something brush against her ankle. She froze, heart pounding wildly. A small, cold hand, or was it just a trick of her mind? An animal instinct kicked in, and she kicked backward. A sharp gasp filled the space, and the whispers grew momentarily quiet. With adrenaline surging, she sprang into motion. Racing down the hallway, she pushed past the pile of boxes until she broke free into a larger room. To her horror, the lights flickered back to life just as she entered, revealing walls blanketed with splattered paint dark red, like blood, smeared in a dance of despair. Tessa's eyes narrowed, searching for an exit. The air was thick with the stench of mildew and decay. She turned to her left and saw an ornately carved door slightly ajar. It beckoned, though the darkness inside seemed to pulse as if it were alive. She stepped forward, instinct stirring unease in the pit of her stomach. "Don't be scared, Tessa," the sing-song voice whispered again, its tone eerily close now, like a shadow brushing against her shoulder. She spun, but there was nothing, only darkness swirling behind her. Laughing, before she could think, Tessa lunged into the room. Inside was an art studio, canvases strewn about, but they were not blank, not even close. Each one was a grotesque depiction of children playing twisted forms, their faces contorted in glee that felt wrong, filled with dread. And in the center, another doll larger, more menacing, its eyes wide and vacant, staring straight into her soul. "Will you play?" It seemed to ask, its mouth unmoving, yet the words echoed in her mind. Tessa's heart raced as the walls began to throb with whispers. The environment twisted, furniture contorting into shapes that reached for her. Panic seized her again. Were they all there? Every child lost to this place? Were they waiting for her, twisted and broken, craving her soul like they had craved Kyle's? No. She screamed, shaking her head. She couldn't lose herself in this madness. She focused ahead, driven by a single thought: finding Kyle. She rushed back through the door, but the hallway had changed. Chilling laughter trailed behind her, the very walls seeming to move, merging and shifting as if they were alive. Shadows crept along the floor, circling her feet, clawing at her like desperate hands. Then she saw it, a shadowed figure at the end of the hall. Still and silent, yet ominous. "Come play," it called gently. The voice was all too familiar. "No." Tessa gasped, bolting in the opposite direction. But she was trapped, and the passageway closed in, her path twisting like a serpent. With each frantic step, the air grew thicker, and she could almost make out the shapes behind her, the dolls, the children coming to life, drawn to the lingering sound of her fear. Were they all once children? The whispers rose to a fever pitch, drowning out her thoughts, an insistent hum that clawed at her sanity. Forever, forever. As she reached the end of the hallway, her heart leaping into her throat, she found a door, this time barred tight. Desperately, she pounded against it, fearful that what lay behind would reclaim her before she could escape. Suddenly, the whispers stopped. "Playtime is over," a chilling voice said behind her, and she felt icy fingers brush against her neck. Tessa spun around to face the shadow, fear freezing her where she stood. A moment stretched, time becoming a rubber band ready to snap. Would she choose the unknown, or face the horrors behind her? But whatever came next felt inevitable, an electrifying weight hung in the air. What would she find on the other side of the door? The dark figure before Tessa shifted slightly, its shape becoming clearer against the abyss around her. She took a step back, instinct screaming at her to flee, but the aura of it held her like a vice. She fought against the terror rising in her throat, desperate to find a semblance of courage. "Who are you?" she managed to choke out, her voice barely a whisper. The shadow coalesced into a form, a woman, her features obscured, hair coiling around her face like tendrils of smoke. A delicate hand lifted, and her finger pointed at Tessa, accusatory yet sorrowful. "You belong to us now," she said softly, a blend of melody and malice that rattled through Tessa's bones. Tessa's heart raced. "No. I'm not part of this. I'm looking for Kyle. The name left her lips like a prayer, a plea for help in this nightmare that clawed at her sanity. Forever the voice echoed, a chorus of frightened children erupting alongside it, drowning her in loss and despair. You will lose him too, like we lost our lives. The very walls seemed to pulse with remorse, as if mourning children long forgotten. Torn fragments of laughter and sorrow billowed through the shadows, wrapped around her like chains. She fought against the crushing weight of their collective despair, stepping further back until the hard barrier of the door pressed against her spine. Suddenly, the woman raised her arms, and the shadows thickened, swirling with life. Join us. He's waiting for you. No. Tessa screamed, shaking her head vigorously. I want to be like you. I will save him. She clawed her way to the door, pounding desperately. Yet the more she fought, the more the room twisted around her, mocking her struggle. A chorus of wails filled the air, rising to a crescendo. Tessa felt the whispers claw at her sanity, words melding into a shriek that sliced through her like a knife. She could see shadows flitting across the walls, each resembling a child's small bodies, outstretched arms, faces wet with tears. Help us, Tessa, one voice pleaded, barely a breath. Help us, play with us forever. In that moment, dread spilled into her veins. What if Kyle was already trapped within their grasp? The shadows shifted closer. No! Tessa shouted, turning to face the shadowed figure again. You can't have me. You can't take him. Her resolve flared momentarily, born from the desperate love she felt for her brother. With a sudden surge, she yanked the door open. Light spilled into the hallway, a dazzling brightness that illuminated the darkness. For a moment, the shadows recoiled, hissing in fury, but before she could step through, the woman's hand shot out, gripping her wrist with a strength that belied her fragile appearance. Choose, Tessa. The woman hissed, her voice hoarse with desperation. Do you give in, or do you fight? Tessa felt the shadows wrap tighter, cold fingers pulling her back. Her heart raced in her chest, pounding with the weight of the choice. Across the threshold, she could see it now, a sliver of hope waiting for her. But behind her, the dulcet whispers began again in a hauntingly sweet melody, tugging at her memories and desires. Forever the pulse of time froze, and Tessa felt herself stretching, caught between two worlds, two choices. Suddenly, the shadows erupted. With a thunderous roar, they lunged at her in a frenzied wave, and Tessa stumbled back, but whether she took hold of hope or was pulled into despair was uncertain as darkness threatened to engulf her once more. In that fleeting moment of chaos, an image flared in her mind, Kyle's smiling face. It flickered like a dying candle, urging her to choose life. Tessa shattered the momentary freeze, pushing against the grasping hands of shadows, forcing herself forward. She burst through the doorway just as tendrils of cold grasped at her, pulling her back to where she might become one of them, and the door slammed shut behind her. She landed hard on the floor of another room. Light burned in her eyes, stinging like acid. Panting, she looked around, grappling with where she had ended up now. But there was no time to take in her surroundings. Where are you, Kyle? She gasped, scanning for any sign of her brother, every fiber of her being racked with fear. And then, she saw it, a faint shimmer of light flickering at the corner of the room. Tessa bolted toward it, but as she approached, dread clawed at her. What if it was just another trap, a cruel ruse? She hesitated, a cold sweat forming on her brow, but as the light pulsed and the whispers of the children resumed, one question echoed in her mind: was this the way out, or was it leading her deeper into the nightmare? Tessa steadied herself, the air buzzing with anticipation. She could feel an unseen gaze scrutinizing her from the shadows. What if this time, she would have to sacrifice everything? Tessa stood frozen, the faint shimmer dancing before her like a will-o'-the-wisp, enticing yet treacherous. Shadows loomed behind her, whispering secrets and begging for her attention. Don't listen to them, she muttered to herself, shaking her head as if trying to rid her mind of their sickly sweet pleas. But doubt wormed its way in, gnawing at her resolve. The light flickered brighter, illuminating a path cloaked in swirling darkness. What if it leads to Kyle? She whispered, the hope sparking her heart, momentarily pushing back the chill that trailed her every breath. I have to go, she finally declared, her voice trembling but firm. With each step toward the light, the room shifted around her, walls swelling and contracting like a lung, breathing in her fear, exhaling malice. As she approached the luminosity, the shadows started to withdraw, creeping back like spiders retreating to their corners. Tessa reached out, her fingers brushing against its edge, a warmth enveloping her hand. A wave of peace washed over her, banishing the cacophony of despair for a heartbeat. But that relief was short-lived. A crashing noise echoed from the far wall, and Tessa spun around. The door she had slammed shut began to shake, splintering under the weight of something massive trying to push through. She could feel despair rolling off the shadows, sensing their hunger for her soul. Open up. Let me in. A riotous voice howled from the other side, reverberating with a sickening, mocking laughter. Panic seized Tessa's heart. The figure of the woman from before materialized again, her vacant eyes bored into Tessa's soul. He's not safe with you. Let him come to us. No. Tessa screamed, realizing that Kyle was the bait in a game all too dark. She turned and lunged toward the light, desperate for escape. The light, it's all a trick. She heard more whispers, clawing at her mind. We are many and we can give you what he cannot. Clenching her jaw, Tessa shot a glance back at the door, where the shadowed figure's finger beckoned her, the invitation laced with a sinister promise. Join us. We can save him. Tessa hesitated, her breath irregular, straddling the line between hope and terror. What do you mean? What have you done to Kyle? The woman's face contorted, the edges of her smile dark and enabling, fracturing the serene image she had once held. Join us, Tessa. Give in, and he shall be freed. No. Tessa shouted again, forcing her feet to carry her closer to the light. The shadows writhed in annoyance, inching toward her, dripping with malevolence. The light pulsed again, warm and inviting. But there was now a flicker of something darker creeping along the edges, crimson tinged with despair. As she groped at the pulsing light, fear surged anew. If she touched it, would she find Kyle, or would she plunge deeper into this labyrinth of horror? With renewed determination, she hurled herself against the light, ignoring the plummeting chill gnawing at her spine. But as her fingers made contact, the room erupted in chaos, darkness swirling around her like a tempest. Don't do it, a voice cried from afar, familiar yet distorted. Was it Kyle? Was he trapped here with her? The shadows howled in fury, swirling violently. Tessa felt as though she were being torn in two. A piercing scream erupted from the light. Was that Kyle's voice? Desperation clawed at her heart. She couldn't let go now. Help us, Tessa. The children's whispers rose again, a sinister symphony echoing the rift between life and death, bursting both hope and despair forth as they crescendoed. With every fragment of strength, Tessa shut her eyes, calling out into the void. Kyle! I'm coming for you. Just as her world collapsed into the light, she felt the sensation of falling peace, fear, and an ominous echo swirled around her, begging her to open her eyes, to see if she had chosen the right path. Then darkness, what awaited her in this new realm? Would Kyle be there? Or would the shadows find her again? The unsettling whispers resumed, creeping closer, tightening their icy grasp, echoing a question that clawed at the edges of her mind. What if the light was nothing more than a reflection of her darkest fears? Tessa blinked, her eyes open to a world that felt almost too still, thick with an unsettling silence. The light that had consumed her flickered weakly, revealing a vast, empty expanse around her. She was alone, or so she thought. The shadows curled and twisted at the edges of her vision, teasing her curiosity with soft whispers. Where am I? She muttered, her words barely breaking the heavy air. The shadows danced closer, whispering incoherent secrets that rattled her bones. She took a step forward, her heart pounding against her ribcage like a frantic drum. "Is anyone there?" Her voice trembled, cutting through the silence, and her own echo made her stomach churn with dread. The ground felt cold beneath her feet, as if it had absorbed the lost warmth of the living. It was then that a distant cry cut through the quiet, one that was achingly familiar. "Kyle!" she shouted, her voice riddled with agony. "I'm here. I'm coming." Racing towards the sound, her pulse quickened. Echoes of children's laughter weaved into the haunting cries, blending into an eerie lullaby that twisted the reality around her. She could make out a shape flickering in the haze ahead. "Stay back." A figure emerged from the fog, a small child, eyes wide with fear, and a finger pointing towards the shadows that gnashed their teeth between them. "They'll take you." "Who? What do you mean?" Tessa's voice was raspy, confusion wrapped around her thoughts like barbed wire. "The shadows want you to stay. They want to keep you here forever," the child cried, stepping back as the darkness crept closer. "No," Tessa pleaded, shifting her gaze toward the encroaching shadows. They swirled as if alive, feeding off her fear. And suddenly, she felt a pull, a powerful urge to turn back, to flee into the unknown of those whispering voids. But then she remembered Kyle's screams. "I can't leave him. Help me." The child's wide eyes shimmered, as if considering. "You have to see the truth. He's not like you think." "Stop." The words burst from Tessa's lips, raw with desperation. "I need to find him." "Where is he?" The child extended a tiny hand, shadows dancing around it, tracing the outline of an ominous shape. "Follow me, but it will hurt." "Anything." Tessa grasped the child's hand, and in an instant, the surroundings shifted. They fell into a dark void, rolling and swirling, filled with screams and whispers. The warmth of hope dwindled, replaced with icy dread as Tessa glimpsed eerie visions. Faces she recognized twisted in pain. Friends, family. Kyle. "What is this?" she gasped, panic clawing at her throat. "It's what they do to those who stay," the child whispered. "They twist them, feed on their loneliness until they become shadows too." A piercing cry ripped through the air, and Tessa's heart lurched. It was Kyle. "Kyle! Where are you?" she shouted, but the shadows closed in tighter around them, snatching away their voices, thickening the air until it felt suffocating. Fighting against the dark tendrils, Tessa sprang forward, clinging to hope as terrors gripped her mind like ice. Had they really twisted Kyle? Was he in there, lost among the shadows? The child pulled her back gently, gazing somberly. "The truth will make you stronger," the child said, their grip tightening. "But you may not like what you find." Tessa felt the defeat loom, a weight pushing her down. This place was a hell of their creation. Yet the screams grew louder, urging her on. With everything she had, she pushed through. "Show me." And in that moment, the shadows shifted, revealing not just her fears but a vision of something far worse. "Is that Kyle?" she shrieked, as dark laughter erupted, sending shivers racing down her spine. As shadows peeled away, what lay beneath was a visage of torment, unrecognizable but exuding the presence of her beloved. Their eyes locked, a scream caught in her throat. The truth was more horrifying than she could have imagined. Before Tessa could move, a jagged mass of shadow lunged, ready to claim her. But who really was lying there in torment? She had to know. Or would she too become part of the darkness? Tessa barely had time to process the revelation before the shadow lunged, its jagged edge aimed directly at her heart. She ducked instinctively, adrenaline surging through her veins, propelling her deeper into the spiraling darkness. It felt like a cold wind swept past her, chilling everything it touched, leaving her breathless. "Run!" The child's voice echoed behind her. "Don't let them catch you." Tessa stumbled forward, her feet barely feeling the uneven ground beneath her. The shadows seemed to pulse, throb, and snake around her, whispering incoherent words that made her head spin. She could feel the pressure of their presence tightening around her, wanting to pull her back into bleak oblivion. A part of her wanted to surrender, to allow the darkness to consume her, but the cry of Kyle echoed in her mind, a haunting melody that wouldn't let her rest. Suddenly, before her, a half-formed figure flickered into view. A fleeting glimpse of what looked like Kyle twisted in despair, his hands pressed against a transparent barrier that shimmered like glass. Tessa gasped, every fiber of her being screaming for her to reach out to him, but the shadows churned more violently, hungry for her fear. "Stay away." Kyle's voice broke through the chaos. "You don't understand." "What do you mean?" Tessa shouted back, her heart in a throbbing panic as she strained towards him. "I'm here for you. I won't leave you. I'm not who you think I am. You have to let me go." His face twisted further, merged with agony. Tessa felt her resolve wavering. Her heart sank. Shadows surged, and she could almost feel them snagging her clothes, tearing at her skin. "No. I can't abandon you. You must. That's the only way." He seemed to cry out from somewhere dark, a chasm of sorrow that swallowed joy. It hit her like a punch to the gut. The child had mentioned the truth, and now she was standing at a precipice between love and self-preservation. Was it Kyle trapped in despair? Or had something more sinister taken root in his soul? What if what she saw was nothing but an illusion, shaped by the shadows into something grotesque? "Choose." A deep, gravelly voice rumbled from the depths. "Embrace the darkness, or flee to light." Her breath quickened. Could she really abandon him, even if it meant saving herself? "Don't listen," Kyle shouted. "It's a trap. The shadows only want to steal you." Tessa hesitated, torn between the distorted image of the man she loved and the child who clung to her, eyes wide with fear. The laughter of the shadows grew louder, mocking her indecisiveness. In a final desperate move, she lunged towards Kyle, arms outstretched. The darkness around her roared, as if it knew she was undoing its hold. She pressed against the barrier, feeling the smooth, cold surface that separated them. But the moment her fingers grazed against it, pain shot through her hand, a heat that felt alive. "Kyle!" But before she could place the full weight of her love into that touch, the shadows writhed, snapping tight around her, dragging her back with a ferocity. "No!" She screamed, frantically pulling against their grip. But for every ounce of strength she exerted, they wrapped tighter, hot anguish burning through her. "Let him go. He's a monster now." The child's voice broke through her chaos, anguished, but holding an icy truth. Panic clawed at Tessa's throat. "No, no. I have to know." In that moment, the shadows shrieked back, a cacophony of layered screams that resonated through her like thunder. Everything twisted, pulling her toward the horrifying truth. And before she could process, the shadows released her. She fell backward, catching a glimpse of a ceiling above her, dark, a whirlwind of despair, and landed on something soft but twisting. Her breaths came in frantic gasps. Beneath her was a writhing mass, and the shadows whispered, coaxing her closer. A vision of Kyle flashed across her mind again, a figure twisted in agony, yet familiar. As the tendrils began to pull her down, she realized she may not be fighting just to save him. She was on the precipice of her own transformation. Would embracing the darkness free them both, or would it only invite more horror? The echo of laughter swirled in her ears. Behind her, the child stood silent, watching her with eyes filled with something that resembled pity. "Who will you become?" Suddenly, everything halted. Tessa hovered on the brink, her heart pounding, holding her breath as the void beckoned her once more. Did she dare to leap into the unknown? Tessa's heart thudded relentlessly in her chest as she lay on the writhing mass beneath her. Panic clawed at her throat, the shadows shimmered with a life of their own, swirling around her body, whispering secret truths just out of reach. She struggled against the tendrils tightening their grip, feeling like prey caught in an invisible web. She couldn't let this consume her. The child's earlier words echoed in her mind, a simple declaration layered with meaning. Who will you become? Could her decision shape not just her fate, but Kyle's as well? A flicker of determination ignited in her chest. With a surge of adrenaline, Tessa forced herself upright, her body trembling from the weight of the shadows. She could see them coiling and unfurling like snakes, whispering her deepest fears back at her. You want to escape, they hissed. You belong to us now. No! She yelled, gripping the writhing mass beneath her. I want to let you take me. Tessa fought against their hold, pushing through dizziness and disorientation. From the corner of her eye, she caught a glimpse of the child. Those wide, frightened eyes were locked on her, a silent plea for help. She turned fully towards the child, desperation igniting a spark of resolve. Help me. I can't do this alone. And just like that, the shadows hesitated. They pulsed, as if taken aback by her defiance. Tessa stared, willing the child to understand, the child who seemed to navigate this darkness with an eerie familiarity. She wasn't merely fighting for herself, but for both of them. Trust your heart. The child shouted, her small voice ringing clear as the darkness slowed its suffocating grip. You know what to do. Tessa took a deep breath, steadying her racing heart. She focused on the image of Kyle. The good moments, laughter shared over takeout, quiet evenings together, she let them fill her. You don't control me. She proclaimed fiercely, as if stating a prayer. She would not become a vessel for the shadow's twisted ambitions. Using all her strength, Tessa yanked her arms free from the suffocating tendrils, pushing against the pulsing shadows that flailed around her like wild weeds. Each second felt like an eternity, but she could feel the shadow's influence weakening. With a scream of raw power, she ripped herself free, propelled by love and desperation. She stumbled back, feeling the cool air rush in like a breeze after a storm. Looking behind her, she saw the shadows coiling back, momentarily stunned. But the calm didn't last. From the center of the swirling darkness surged a deeper shadow, thicker and darker than the rest, forming into a grotesque humanoid shape. A faceless creature with limbs twisting at unnatural angles emerged, its presence swallowing hope. Foolish girl, it whispered, its voice a murky blend of regret and malice. You cannot escape your fate. You unwittingly chose to challenge the dark. Now, you will face the consequences. Tessa's heart raced. Kyle! She shouted, desperate for one more chance to reach him. But instead, she felt a strong arm tugging at her. The child. Run! The child cried, igniting a spark of urgency deep within Tessa. With one final look at the advancing creature, she turned, gripping the child's tiny hand tightly. She ran, dodging shadows that leaped toward her like grasping claws. The path twisted and shifted, an ever-changing maze of darkness. Tessa had no idea where it led, but she could feel the shadows clawing at her heels, close, far too close. Why does it want you? The child asked, voice trembling as they dodged around an unseen corner. I don't know. But I can't lose you too. Tessa gasped, feeling tears prick at her eyes. Had she saved the child only to lose them both? Then we need to find light. It's the only way. Hope flared within her, even as fear paralyzed her mind. Tessa. A voice echoed through the chaos, Kyle's voice, distorted but unmistakable. Help me. I'm trapped. She skidded to a halt, heart pounding anew. The shadows receded, momentarily silent, as if waiting for her next move. Was it a trick again, or did she truly hear him? Which is it? Now? The child whispered gravely, staring up at her with wide, knowing eyes. Trust him or trust us? Tessa trembled, trapped between love and dread. Each heartbeat screamed for her to make a choice right now as darkness swirled around them like a storm, ready to devour them both. Would she dare step into the unknown once more? Tessa's heart raced, caught between the echoes of Kyle's desperate cries and the shadowed whispers from the depths around her. I have to find him. She couldn't abandon him again. The twisted space wavered as if responding to her urgency, shadows pulsing and thrumming beneath her feet. Stay close. She urged the child, determination swelling inside her. With a deep breath, she turned, focusing on the sound of her brother's voice. Each step felt like treading through glue. The air became thick, dark tendrils curling around her ankles, pulling her back into a chilling embrace. But she shook them off, fueled by desperation. Kyle! She shouted, bursting into a long hallway that stretched endlessly in both directions. The flickering lights cast grotesque shadows, the very walls alive with malice, whispering dark threats. She could see something, a shadow flitting just up ahead. Run! The child insisted, and Tessa followed. They raced towards the flickering light, the shadows shrieking in rage, clawing at her back, desperate to reclaim her into their folds. A shriek pierced the air. Tessa! Kyle's voice echoed, hopeless yet pleading, and it froze her in her tracks. Help me! Right this way! The child pointed ahead, leading Tessa deeper into the uncertain light. They dashed past twisted shapes, each one resonating with sorrowful cries of children trapped within the school's walls. Tessa's soul ached with each scream, yet she pressed on. They burst through a door, tumbling into a vast room that spiraled around them, filled with ghostly visions circling the edges. In the center lay a glassy surface that shimmered like water, reflecting fragmented memories of laughter and warm sunlight. Yet, underneath, shadows writhed, hungry for a taste of despair. There he is. The child pointed toward the center. Tessa squinted into the haze and saw Kyle, a flickering form desperately pressing against the translucent barrier, his face twisting with grief. He needs you. Kyle! She yelled, taking a staggering step toward him. But the shadows roared, thrashing around her like a storm, threatening to engulf her. I'm coming. Tessa's voice rang out through the chaos. With every ounce of strength, she lunged forward, crashing against the barrier. An electric surge coursed through her fingers as she stretched towards Kyle. I won't lose you. She cried, breathless with terror-tinged love. The shadows howled, battering against the edges of the shimmering layer, desperate to break her resolve. Kyle! She sobbed, feeling her heart stretch towards him. You have to hold on. I'm right here. Kyle, the child called out, joining her, their small frame overwhelmed but firm. Trust her. Trust your sister. For a split second, the darkness halted, the whispers wavering, an opportunity to extinguish the chaos while Tessa pressed her hand against the transparent barrier, feeling warmth wash over her. And just like that, the glassy surface softened, rippling like water. A surge of hope shattered the shadow's hold. Kyle! She cried again, urging him to reach for her. Kyle's eyes met hers, a flicker of recognition shimmering through the distorted haze. When he lifted his hand, she grasped it tightly, pouring her love into that single connection. In that moment, the world erupted in light, the shadows screeched, thrashing and retreating, pulling back as if scalded by the brightness radiating from Tessa's heart, a force created by love and resilience. The space twisted violently, swallowing the darkness in a surge that illuminated the entire room. With one final push, the barrier shattered, a net of glass exploding into brilliant fragments, and as if in slow motion, Tessa felt herself being swept along with Kyle through the dazzling beam of light. They landed in a heap on the cool, solid floor of the old school hallway, spirals of laughter echoing around them, this time infused with life and joy instead of despair. Tessa and Kyle blinked against the harsh brightness. You're safe. She gasped, pulling him close, relief flooding over them like a wave. We made it. Kyle exclaimed, grinning through tears, but without hesitation, he turned to the child, who lingered back, shadows flickering around their form. Come with us. Tessa urged, lifting her hand toward the child. Her heart ached with hope for someone who had helped her in the darkest moments, but the child smiled, an understanding flicker in their wide eyes. "You're free now. You have to go before they come back." The shadows writhed uncertainly around the child, readying themselves. "We can't leave you. You need to escape too. Go. This is your chance." The child's voice rang clear, a tone of gentle command. The shadows began to close in, dark and hungry yet helpless against the pure light shining from Tessa and Kyle. With a final, sorrowful smile, the child simply whispered, "You are both stronger now. Remember us." Tessa stumbled back, fear gripping her heart as shadows lunged. But instinct propelled her forward, pulling Kyle with her as they retraced the path they had come. "Run!" Tessa urged, clutching Kyle's hand tight as they sprinted the length of the hallway, bursting through an exit that opened to the cool night air, light spilling out from the school behind. They stumbled out into the freedom of the world outside, laughter of the school echoing warmly behind them, a stark contrast to the chilling shadows lurking just within. Waiting, Tessa inhaled sharply, glancing back at the decrepit building that had held so many horrors. "We survived, Kyle. We're free," she said, voice catching, tears streaming down her cheeks. With that, they turned away from the past. Together, they stepped into the life waiting ahead of them, forever bonded through the darkness they defaced and victorious over it. They were not just survivors, they were warriors, ready to live their truth, finally free. And so, dear viewers, as we close this chapter of Tessa and Kyle's harrowing tale, let us remember, darkness can engulf us, but it is love and light that ultimately breaks the hold of fear. If you loved this story, you need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support for tales of good triumphing over evil. Smash that like button now and help us feed the algorithm so more people can enjoy these exclusive stories. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. Your thoughts matter to us.